everyone. Welcome to episode 116 of Formidable Opponents, a show that pits three people who have known each other virtually their entire lives in a series of conversations as we argue what is best in a variety of fun, engaging, and critical pop culture topics we all debate about. I'm Randall, and with me as always, Bob and Joseph. And this week's topic is Best Beatles Solo Song. Choosing the best Beatles group or solo song isn't the easiest of tasks, but with their popularity maintaining a grip on past and current generations and their infinite influence forever inspiring generations to come, it's obvious to see that their legend and inspiration didn't end when the band broke up in 1970. The Beatles' solo careers were these journeys all the band members had to take. Journeys that continued to keep the legendary collective of the group alive, but allowed us to explore each of their distinctive styles, experiences, and emotions. Oftentimes, when we talk about the Beatles, we neglect the second act. The solo endeavors that crafted a musical landscape that both whispered to their continuing saga and shouted their raw and honest divergence. They each gifted us with anthems, thoughts, raw honesty, and showcased their growth as artists. We were lucky to see what a Goliath they were together, and even though the band's breakup broke hearts, each of the band members mended them with a spiritual soul, social consciousness, poignant ballads, enlightenment, introspection, charm, and catchy hooks. Post-breakup, the Beatles have given us decades of enduring influence, and sometimes, to get to that next level, you have to venture on your own, be that leader, and get that story told. This episode is a response to a Rolling Stone article written by Rob Sheffield entitled The 100 Best Beatles Solo Songs. In this article, Sheffield made it clear it wasn't about the greatest hits, commercial success, radio airplay sales, and popularity notwithstanding. The only thing that matters is the level of Beatle magic. That's an excellent point of view on this topic. This week, Formidable Opponents discusses and debates Best Beatles Solo Song. With me, as always, are two guys who better not ever show up to this podcast with a new girlfriend wearing dark sunglasses and a beret. That's how it starts, guys. Guys, how are y'all doing?
Doing good. Did you ever see Chuck Berry's reaction when she was screaming when they did that live performance? That was just like, that's like epic. If y'all have never seen that, please YouTube that.
Chuck Berry.
What's up, folks? Sunday fun day. We're all doing good.
Sunday.
How's it going, guys?
Good. How's everybody doing tonight? Or afternoon, whatever it is. Wherever
it is you're listening, on the way to work, in the restroom, wherever you got it.
Happy
Easter.
Let's see, Randy.
Kwanzaa.
Usually, yeah. Happy Thursday, everybody.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday, whenever you're listening to us, we got a great episode today. So we
sure as hell ain't Monday. Not
it's not Monday. No, it's not. I won't be releasing this on Monday. Too much to talk about, a lot to edit out. But guys, let's start off with the opening questions. Reflecting on the Beatles' collective impact, how did their solo careers influence the landscape of popular music?
They didn't. That's just the simple answer. They didn't, man. Not their solo careers. Now, I'm not taking anything away, but the magic that was there when it came to the Beatles, them as a collective, them together, that had a major influence on a lot of different genres of rock and roll and music in general. I think that it was hard to replicate solo. Now, solo, they had the best of what they did in the Beatles, or, what they brought to the table while they're with the Beatles, but I don't think that solo, they had this great influence because a lot of the magic and creative shit they came up with happened while they were still in the supergroup.
It's not going to matter. Their solo careers, while they matter, they don't matter. They're obviously always going to be remembered for what they did in the Beatles, and that in itself is what people say. Like when musicians say, "I was a big fan of the Beatles. I was very influenced by the Beatles." They don't specifically point out, like, at least not back then. And I'm sure as hell sure that, these new artists today, or even, artists from the 90s and 2000s don't actually like flat out say, I was hugely inspired by Paul McCartney's solo career. I was completely 100% inspired by John Lennon's solo career. They don't say that. They say
especially don't say it about John Lennon. I'm sorry.
So to add to what Bob said, it's not a knock on their solo careers. It's just, it is what it is. They're always going to be tied to the Beatles.
I've heard people say that they've been extremely inspired or by Paul McCartney's bass playing, by Ringo Starr's drumming, Like that's been brought to the table, but that has nothing to do specifically with their solo career music that they produced. It has more to do with like their instrument play.
I think what they offered as solo artists was songwriting innovation. They got to push boundaries. I think a lot of times their expression as a collective was very compromised because, you know, when you play a song, you represent the whole band, you represent the history of the band. When they broke apart, whether the songs were good or bad, they got to innovate solo. I think genre exploration, these guys went everywhere with their solo work. They were so versatile as solo artists that they showcased their versatility and adaptability in a way that they wouldn't have been able to do in the band. I think personal expression had to play a big part of it. They were carving out their own identities for themselves outside the band. Emotions are so personal, right? That when we get insight to their inner worlds, we got a different view of them, whether it was good or bad, right? Cultural influence, their songs became anthems for social movements and empowerment. And no matter how you feel about their breakup, their legacy isn't what it is without each individual exploring their own worlds. So yes, as a collective, we're always going to romanticize the Beatles, but I think as single artists, solo artists, that was a very important era for all of them, especially the 70s.
Well, I agree with some of the things you said. I also disagree because John Lennon and Paul McCartney got to put whatever the fuck they wanted out on the albums, okay? So maybe what you're saying for George Harrison and Ringo Starr, for sure, I agree with that they finally got to express themselves fully and open up to what the type of genres of music or the type of music that they wanted to produce. But John Lennon and Paul McCartney were doing it already with the Beatles. It was their way. A lot of the times they communicated, they worked together, they produced music together, and that was going to be on the album. George Harrison and Ringo Starr definitely had to fight for spots or for songs on the albums.
So that kind of leads me to the next question, Bob. How did each member's unique personality and musical style shine through in their solo work? What did you see that was different, good or bad?
Songs were definitely happier with the Ringo Starr in the fucking leading the way. Now, I love Ringo Starr and I love his type of music. Very different. His type of music, I would say, is very different from the Beatles. A lot more upbeat, a lot more happy, he has this cool little like folksy country bluegrass, and then he adds like great melodies. It's got like a 50s feel to it. Like there's a lot of collective mix, but it's very different from, one would say, like Come Together. Like it's very different from that type or style of song. I think he really got to express himself. I think a lot of people love him because he's so different from the Beatles. Now, George Harrison, another guy that I feel like his music is also very close to the Beatles' music, but it's also a little different. I think he was always the man left out. He was the quiet one. He got, brushed to the side a lot, not because they did it intentionally, but because Paul McCartney is such a musical genius and John Lennon was such a hard ass. So collectively together, they wanted to do and produce songs that they loved, that they wrote, that they made together, and adding in George Harrison and Ringo Starr, like, hey, this is what we're doing. Let's see what you can do with this. So it was cool to see George Harrison kind of break free from that, and then Ringo Starr to be like so whimsical and happy and free and be able to do what the fuck he wanted to do. That was cool.
They weren't as stressed out. I mean, they were. They
didn't smoke as many cigarettes, or they did, but because they were partying instead of being stressed.
They were doing their own thing, and nobody was telling them no, and nobody was telling them that was a bad idea. So probably 100% agree with that. In listening to these songs, did any of you all, and some of that shine through on Beatles albums, right? Like on Beatles songs and whatnot. Some of them sounding almost depressing and whatnot, maybe because of what was going on and what they were doing and being stressed out and pissed off with each other at times. I didn't really get any of that vibe from listening to them, each person's solo songs.
There was a little bitterness there, but I think it was mostly between Paul and John.
Everything was like Bob said. It was either like a love song, love poetry song, or just an awesome jam song. Nothing was really like too depressing, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at. They all just seemed like they were in a better mood.
Yeah, definitely that freedom had a lot to play into it. I noticed a lot of disdain for John coming from Bob, but we'll get to that soon. I think each member's unique personality.
I love John.
They were all sort of categorized in this band, right? They all had their own individual specialties and personalities. They grew up to be their own unique individuals when they were solo, but they were still tethered to that collective Beatles spirit. It was strange because listening to all these songs, and there were a lot of songs I had never heard before this episode, and the songs all sounded like they were by a Beatle, but sounded nothing like Beatles songs. So I guess it goes that the stress and the sort of I guess you could say, I don't know if it's hostility, but differences, especially for those last couple of albums, were really like, I'm free of that now. I get to call my own shots. And I think it helped with their artistic expression, and it made them better musicians.
I agree. I agree with that, like to a certain extent too. But I think that when you have, it's like, you know what's better than, one genius in the room? Four. You know what I mean? So I think that what each of them brought to the table in creating this artistic expression, like when you blended a lot of their genius together, you created these amazing songs. And I think when they broke off, they thought like, well, I'm a musical genius. Like I'm sure, and they are. When my solo career, I'm going to create things that were better than the Beatles. I'm sure they thought that, like just as good or not better. But not having the other genius on your side to be like, what if you tweaked this, or what if you tried this, or what if you added this? I think that's the little secret ingredient that a lot of them were missing. Not saying that they were bad, because they produced a lot of amazing songs themselves, solo career. But I think that secret ingredient was them together, whether it was happy or sad or arguing, but working together and blending and creating blending their genius. I think it really worked for them, for the Beatles.
And you saw during a lot of their solo careers, they were still partnering up. Like you heard Ringo in Paul McCartney's music, John and George. I mean, they were still partnering up. They just weren't a collective. And you're right, Bob, because when you watch those documentaries, like Paul starts something, and then John brings in something, and then George brings it, and then Ring, and it's all like this weird sharing of the
Yoko
mind.
opens her mouth, and
God damn it! Tell Yoko to mind her business. Mind your business, Yoko. God damn it!
So that leads me to this question: we all have seen the documentaries and the stories.
He's the Courtney Love of this fucking documentary right now.
So from a fan's perspective, who wasn't there at the time, right? We just see everything in retrospect. What is your take on the Beatles breakup?
I was talking with Bob about this the other day. I said, I don't want this to sound like, and this isn't, and please, listeners, particularly women, this isn't me. No, for reals. This isn't me trying to say the woman came in and fucked shit up. That's not what I'm trying to say.
But she did.
But this person named Yoko Ono, who happens to be a woman, came in and fucked this shit up. Okay? Like, I'm sorry. Like, it is what it is. John was so in these documentaries, he was so like a fucking zombie at times.
Have you seen Let It Be, Ren?
I have. It's a great documentary.
Let It Be, fucking amazing documentary. She is at his hip at every single step and point of this doc, like trying to create, like John Lennon and Paul McCartney had this thing where they created music, blending music and lyrics, and they had this thing. And then you get like the fucking woman sitting right in between them, like sewing and knitting and shit. And you're like, what the fuck? Like, I can't fully express myself when somebody else that hasn't been a part of the process is now right in between, in the middle of the fucking process. Like, I think it threw them off. I think that was a cause of it. Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry if that sounds. I'm just saying. I'm sorry if that sounds terrible, but I believe there's people out there, men and women alike, that agree with this take. That there wasn't a need. Like, I understand you're in a relationship. This is somebody that you love. Maybe they were while they were dating, and they obviously did get married as well. And they had children from this. That's a great thing. But why was it so necessary for her to influence so much of his in a band? Like, he's in a band. Go ahead.
Can I add to that? Yeah. Well, I mean, they were both addicted to heroin, and I think she enabled him. Like he was a drug addict big time during Let It Be, and she was an enabler. She was all in. Hey, don't worry about it. Like, you can do it. And like, I think that's another reason why. I mean, not only was he infatuated with her, but she enabled him to continue to do the drugs that I'm sure that the other band members are like, dude, that's not cool. That type of shit. So he was all in on her. This guy was more in love with her than I've seen people be in love with somebody before on camera. But I mean, she did enable him. I mean, she really did. She really did when it came to the drugs and alcohol. I don't. If there's any point in the documentary or anything that we've seen where she was like, "No, you can't be doing this shit." She was just right there by his side. You want to do drugs? Let's do drugs. You want to hang out? Let's hang out. You want to write songs with Paul? I will watch you and give you pointers.
I think that's a factor. I think that's an easy way to say they broke up because of Yoko Ono. But I also think there is so many other factors. Like, Paul just wanted to play music in a band. He wanted to have fun. fun and be a superstar. The others couldn't handle their drugs and they got into the spiritual stuff, right? They had money problems, the death of Brian Epstein, who always kept them together, divergent creative visions, arising artistic impulses. There was a lot of other things going on, the songwriting process, and we saw it on Let It Be. It became a chore, and they each wanted their own lives, and they evolved past being just musicians. They stopped performing in August of 1966 and still released 5 killer albums after that. So I think a lot of it was just stress. It was just
it's hard to be the biggest band in the world.
It is. It really is.
Biggest fucking band in the world. Yeah.
Anything could knock you off the mountain when you're that focused. And I think it was just fatigue. They were fatigued around each other all the time, creating all this music. And they didn't have an opportunity to really start exploring other facets of their lives. And when they did, I think that came into play of, okay, well, there's more to life than just the Beatles, just like there's more to life than sports or anything else.
How dare you say that? Sports are life. NFL, football, Houston Texans, forever.
So in retrospect, was the breakup the best thing for them at that time?
I could say this, like, there is nothing wrong, and Joseph, a lot of your favorite bands have done this, and artists have done this. There's nothing wrong to be like, we're going to put out an album, but next year, we're all going to make our separate albums. And then the following year, we're going to make an album again, back as the Beatles. Like, there's nothing wrong with that, with a band member creating a solo album to produce some of the stuff that he specifically or she specifically wants to produce that doesn't quite fit the Beatles brand, right? So there's nothing wrong with that. I felt like they could have done that and still been together, been like, hey, next year, if you want to create a solo album, go for it, man. Expand your wings, do whatever you want. Not Wings with Paul McCartney, by the way. But do your own thing. And then we come back the following year and then we create more Beatles style music. Like, I don't think that could have been the problem.
If somebody has an argument for her not being the reason,
and the reason is you, Yoko.
then the reason is you, yeah. Look, I understand. Look, like I think that they were they already volatile at the time? Were they a little like,
for sure?
Yes. Do I think she was what's the term? She was a spark where gasoline was already, sparking gasoline. Yeah. Was gasoline already poured on the floor? Most definitely.
She's like, I know Ringo left and I know George tried to leave, but you know what you should do? You should leave first. Fuck them. I could already hear her saying that shit.
So I understand that there were some issues. Could they have, like what Bob said, taken a break? Go explore yourself and figure out, do you want to do this? Do you want to continue this? Go make some music. You know what? If that's what you feel you need to do, we will come back to this. But it just seems like, no, I don't think it was the best thing at the time.
Was Yoko a factor?
They could have gone a little bit longer if they had just kind of, maybe, I know you mentioned the death of what's his name, kind of
Brian Epstein.
Epstein, keeping them together. But I think there was a way for them to work shit out. And
for sure.
A little bit longer.
I think they would. But ego
will drive you nuts. I will say I can't give Yoko Ono all the credit in the world.
No, of course not.
She couldn't have orchestrated this. I mean, John was philandering, behind her back very famously too. I think they had separated for a year or so.
She said, "You can have sex with that other Asian chick. Go ahead, bro." And afterwards, she was like, you shouldn't have done that, man. Why'd you do that, you jerk?
So, I mean, at the time, I think, yes, they were they were so combustible. Would they have released another decade of hits? Sure. I mean, that comes with the territory. That comes with being a genius, right? But they would have been bored, irritated, and miserable, I think. And just because we wanted them to stick together doesn't mean they should have. So I think it was the right time. I honestly think I think had John lived, I think they would have had.
They would have got back together, right?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe in the 90s. Yeah.
They talked a lot about that. I didn't mean to cut you off, but they talked a lot about that. Like the biggest regret after John passed away, they were like, "Fuck, why were we so stupid? We should have gotten back together. We should have made some more music. We should have gotten together." Like I think that's a major regret by Paul McCartney and Harrison and Ringo for sure.
So, guys, to conclude this, before we get to our honorable mentions, we made our selections for Best Beatles Solo Song. None of us picked a song by Ringo. What was his best song? Is it Photograph? It Don't Come Easy?
Oh, dude. Okay. It's Don't Come Easy, and it's the No song. Oh my God, dude. That album, it's what's Welcome to Vienna. That album cover, I've been wanting that vinyl. It's like Ringo Starr dressed in like a night outfit and then a UFO behind him. I need that vinyl album. Joseph knows. Joe's like, we can get it for you online. I was like, no, I want to find it out
This guy was like, I'm like, dude, it's on eBay. You can find it on eBay. He's like, no, I have to find it out in the wild.
Yeah, it's a thing for me. But no, Ringo's very underrated, dude, because people love him so much because out of all the shit that was going on, all he wanted to do was like, I just want to play music and have fun. I want to have a good time. Like, what did he ask for every birthday? You know, peace on earth, whatever the fuck, man. That's all I want, bro. That's all I want. Peace on earth. That's too much to ask. Like, he's such a sweetheart and a great dude. As a matter of fact, I'm going to see him in July, which is amazing. But he's such a great dude, very underrated because you don't think, he just played the drums and out. But his music was great. If you're into that type of music, his music was fantastic, dude. It really, really was.
Thankfully, he's still doing his thing, too.
81 years old and still rocking, baby.
Still doing it, man.
Like I said, Bob's gonna go see him. So I don't know, man. I mean, it's not a thing to where, look, I knew what I wanted to pick. I know what song that I wanted to pick, and unfortunately, it wasn't a Ringo song. It's not a knock against him. It's on YouTube because you all didn't pick him.
I just want the record to show that I made the first selection out of us three. I made the first selection. I already knew.
I think a lot of people equate him because he sang the octopus song. He sang the silly songs. What do you want? I like to get high. You know, I mean, you know,
his were all like fun-loving, beautiful songs. Like maybe the lyrics weren't as deep as something like John Lennon would have written, all dark and deep. But his shit was fun and it like brightened people's lives, and they were like, it's the kind of shit you want to listen to when you're doing cocaine and having a drink and partying and enjoying life. Like, he enjoyed life. He still enjoys life. He's always smiling, bro. That's one thing that the other Beatles can't say that they had, bro.
Peace
Ringo
of
Starr
mind. Yes.
was the one. Yeah. Well, I mean, George Harrison kind of found it after finding God and everything like that. But Ringo Starr was the only one that was like, yo, want to argue? Cool. I'm going to go get drunk with this hot stewardess over here. Fuck you. Yeah, let me know when you're ready to make music. I'm going to go have fun. Like, he was just a fun-loving one. I love Ringo Starr. I really do.
We were talking about that clip yesterday with Bob where in Family Guy.
Song?
No, in Family Guy where it's because we're talking about Ringo, where like it's they cut to a cutaway of like the Beatles writing a song, and then Ringo comes in. He's like, "Hey guys, I wrote this song," and they're like, "Oh, that's great, Ringo." And Paul takes. He's like, "You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna put it up here on the fridge." And he puts it on the fridge. He's like, "So that way we can see it every day." And then Ringo's like, "All right."
Yeah, the first
like they even joked about it. Like, I mean, it is what it is, right?
You know, it's like that old saying: "Is Ringo the best drummer in the world?" And John Lennon says he's not even the best drummer in the band. I mean, and also I remember the first. Go ahead.
I just want to make one point about Ringo Starr. Yes. Everybody, it's a comparable, but I mean, you might not. But anyways, Jimi Hendrix is known as one of the greatest guitarists of all time, and one of the reasons why, because he played a right-handed guitar left-handed, and he created such amazing sounds and music and blues and rock that's just like, I mean, just wow. Ringo Starr plays a right-handed drum kit left-handed, which creates a certain sound which allows him to be different. And he's one of the first to do that. And I don't think he gets enough fucking credit for the drums that he plays, because you wouldn't think it'd be that different, but because they're flipped and because it's like that when he plays, he creates his own sound. He's an amazing drummer, dude.
Also, Ringo Starr was the star of one of my favorite early HBO movies, Caveman. You know, one of the best early HBO movies. That they used to show that 24 times a week during the summer when HBO had a small catalog, or in the early 80s. But love Ringo Starr. So let's go on to our honorable mentions. Bob, what do you got for us?
I was trying to cut it down because I'm sure you all have a good list. I have a good list. I cut it down to like a few each person. So Ringo, It Don't Come Easy. I also have Ringo, the No song. That's my favorite song from him. That's fucking hilarious. If you haven't heard it, you've heard it, Joe. I played it for Josie yesterday. Fucking hilarious, lighthearted, just funny shit, dude. George Harrison, All Things Must Pass. I mean, oh man. When We Was Fab, I love that song. It's one of my favorite songs from George Harrison. Such a sad song because he's talking about when they were the Fab Four. Such a like heartbreaking song if you really, jump into the lyrics. What Is Life? Such a sweet, beautiful song. I'm sure you all know that. Lennon, there's not a lot of Lennon songs that I like, and I'm going to say that up front. Lennon might be my favorite Beatle out of the whole group in the Beatles. But solo, a lot of his music I just didn't connect with, or I just didn't get. I did like Mind Games, and I did really, really like, which I think is his best song, is Working Class Hero.
Yeah, Bob Dylan.
Working Class Hero with the anger in his voice. He even cusses on the song. And you could, Ringo, I mean, Lennon's always been this, there's a lot of negativity. He looks at the world in a different light, in a darker lens. And you could hear a lot of it in Working Class Hero. I think it's a fantastic song. And then lastly, of course, Paul McCartney, who has probably the biggest catalog out of everybody that's out there. Maybe I'm Amazed. Fucking amazing song.
Yes.
Let Him In. Love that song. And then maybe people don't know this song. Maybe people don't listen to the song, or they haven't listened to it enough. But Junk is an amazing song. You have to listen to Paul McCartney's Junk. Sounds fucking funny, but it's amazing. It's an amazing
song. To me in the middle of the night. Listen to it. Helps me write songs.
You want to see it?
Joseph, what do you got for us?
I broke it down too. So I got Mrs. Vanderbilt by Paul. I also had Maybe I'm Amazed. Give Me Love, Give Me Peace on Earth by
that's a sweet
Harrison.
song.
Great song.
I did have Isn't It a Pity, also by him. I have your selection too, Bob. It's a great song.
Thank you. I love you.
I also had It Don't Come Easy and the No No song by Ringo. I had Mind Games.
It's a great song, Joseph. It's a great song, Joseph.
I have Mind Games by John, and I also have Randy's selection as well.
For my selection on honorable mentions, I had Say, Paul McCartney, and Michael Jackson. Come on.
I forgot about that one too. Yeah,
you might as well have picked Ebony and Ivory. Randall.
It's funny.
I do like that. No, let me just say, I do really like that song, and I completely forgot about it because I always associate it with being more of a Michael song, and it's not it's not Michael's song. He's the feature on that. So I keep on forgetting that because he's very prominent on it. Michael was very, it wasn't like he just had one little line or one verse and that was it. Like he was very much, it was like a duet, but it was a Paul song.
Michael Jackson. And Bob, it's funny that you mentioned Ebony and Ivory, because when I was first introduced to who Paul McCartney was, it was through Ebony and Ivory and Say. I was thinking, who is
Jesus, who hurt you? Didn't tell your parents to buy some good albums?
So I was thinking, who is this British guy singing with all these famous people? Who the fuck is this guy? It's Paul McCartney. I also had Jet, Paul McCartney with Wings. Maybe I'm Amazed, Wings.
I love Wings.
Live and Let Die, Wings as well. Take It Away, Paul McCartney, an early 80s song I enjoyed. For John Lennon, I had Mind Games. I think we all agree it's a great song.
Yeah, it's a great song.
Beautiful Boy, Working Class.
That's a super sad song, man. God damn, that hurts my heart.
Great song. Working Class Hero, Instant Karma. And I'm going to say Happy Christmas, but not the Yoko Ono part, okay?
Good call. I agree. We talked about that last night, Joseph, right? I agree with that.
For George Harrison, I got my mind set on you. Once you know the title of this song, 75% of the lyrics. So I got my mind set on you. It's fucking awesome.
Dude, can I tell you something about that? I didn't realize George Harrison sang that song until we did a Beatles episode a year or two ago. I swear to God, I was like, that's George. What the fuck, George Harrison? I swear to God, I didn't know he sang that specific song. That freaked me out, dude. It really did.
When we was Fab, George Harrison, What Is Life, George Harrison. Handle with Care. Now, this is the Traveling Wilburys, but George Harrison was prominently featured on this song. A great song. And for Ringo, I had Photograph and It Don't Come Easy. Guys, before we get to our selections, can I share with you the top 5 Beatles solo songs from the Rolling Stone article?
Absolutely not.
No,
no, go for it.
Not allowed. Paul and John, say no.
Number 5 was Mind Games by John Lennon. I think we agree it's a great song.
It's not number 5 though. Fuck you.
I'm
just kidding.
Number 4, It Don't Come Easy by Ringo Starr. I think we agree.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. Number 3 was Give Me Love, Give Me Peace on Earth by George Harrison. Number 2 was God by John Lennon. And none of our selections, by the way. And then number 1 was Maybe I'm Amazed by Paul McCartney, which is incredible.
That's my favorite Paul McCartney song. It's a great song.
It's a great song. So we're going to go on with our selections for best Beatles solo song. Bob, what do you got for us?
Okay, so folks, I just want to preface that I'm a huge Beatles fan. I know Randall is as well. We try to do a lot of research on this, and we love the Beatles. We're fans of the Beatles. I don't want you to take anything that we say like, oh, these guys hate or anything like that. We love the Beatles. So anything that we say or any arguments against, it's because of the show, right? Having said that, One of the most underrated Beatles, one of the most underrated solo careers was by George Harrison. And I went with George Harrison, My Sweet Lord. November 1970, the late, great George Harrison released his amazing first album, All Things Must Pass, with fantastic songs like What Is Life? Isn't It a Pity? Joseph mentioned that in our honorable mentions. The title track, All Things Must Pass. And of course, my favorite, My Sweet Lord. While the other Beatles were making, you could say they're making some bitter new music at the time, besides Ringo, because that guy's a fucking saint. He's a great person. George Harrison released this sweet and touching and spiritual, that's just amazing, man. The quiet one, George Harrison starts his song with an acoustic melody, and then it follows up with his signature slide guitar, and that sound, that melody just puts you at peace, puts you like, man, if folksy, bluesy music was the Beatles' cup of tea, that George Harrison was the one to serve it. I love the fact that he's even talking about God, because people know that George Harrison was the reason why they went to India. George Harrison was the spiritual one of the group, which is crazy because John Lennon doesn't strike me as such the spiritual religious person, but he was willing to go with him because George Harrison, I mean, John Lennon is a great friend, obviously. And George Harrison's very spiritual, and I love the fact that his first song, I mean, I know it's not his first song, but his first album, like this big album after they break up, and this song, it's focused on God. It's not on fame. It's not on money. It's not on beautiful women, all of which he undoubtedly had, like all the Beatles. I mean, see Patty Boyd, for instance. This song seems just so at peace and so heartfelt, and gives off this vibe of both like sadness and happiness and gratefulness, which is really shocking considering he just broke up the greatest band of all time, or he was a part of the breakup of the greatest band of all time. So it's so unfitting, I should say, that he sings such a peaceful song about like love and God and the universe when all that shit's going on. It strikes me as so weird, or it's so George Harrison, right? I really love the song, dude. It's very touching. It's very moving. There's no need in the song for like this experimental sounds or any eccentric guitar riffs or bass lines. It's just a sweet and spiritual and perfect and George Harrison song, man. It's definitely George Harrison. When you, it's just such a sweet and perfect song. Then I like that it's so simple, because the Beatles definitely pushed the boundaries of music. They experimented so much with orchestras and sounds and music and taking shit to the limit, where there's a reason why they're the most influential band of all time, because they really did so many different amazing things. And this song was so different from that, because it was so simple and so sweet, and it makes me like, wow, that the Beatles can have songs like this, and George Harrison produced one, which it's just a shock to me. It's not surprising as much, because he did have songs like Something and While My Guitar Gently Weeps and Here Comes the Sun on the Beatles albums, but this song just definitely relates to those, man. It's super brilliant by George Harrison, and this whole album is amazing by him, because it's kind of like the not anti-Beatles, because it sounds very much like the Beatles, but it's the simple version, the acoustic version, okay, let's get back to just what we used to do, like simple and acoustic and amazing and spiritual. And I really did connect with that kind of thing, man. It's just My Sweet Lord. I don't know, man. It's one of those songs that just sticks out to me. And it really affected me, because it's a song that, when you think of the Beatles, there's just so many amazing songs. And then you're like, think of one that's when they broke off, when they went solo, when they were separate. What's one song that sticks out? And My Sweet Lord is at the top of the list. It just stands out as just such a sweet and emotional song. And it's so simple that it's not the Beatles, but it is. This is my pick, man. I love this song. I know you all, we've talked about it. I know you all like this song. You may not love it as much as me, but what do y'all think about it?
This one, My Sweet Lord, comes in at number 13 on the Rolling Stones article list. The only Harrison songs that topped it were Pure Smokey, which sounds like an operator putting you on hold song. Isn't It a Pity? It's a good song. Give Me Love, another good song. This song was the first solo Beatles song to reach number 1. George, the quiet one, the guy that probably slept crying with his pillow covering his face while Paul and John argued, created the first Beatles solo #1 song. Remember, these were guys discovering themselves not only as artists but as individuals post-breakup. Ringo Starr, Eric Clapton, Gary Booker, Bobby Whitlock, and members of the group of Badfinger were among the recording of this album. That's why it's such a big hit. You know, Clapton played his ass off to impress Harrison's wife, Patty Boyd, at the time, but we won't get into that again. I'm sure he added a few extra hallelujahs.
Who wouldn't, goddammit?
I'm sure he added a few extra hallelujahs to get her attention. So this song already has its roots as someone sabotaging a marriage, right? Talking about Eric Clapton and George Harrison. Just like George's dreams of playing in the biggest band in the world were recently sabotaged. So speaking of sabotage, My Sweet Lord was the center of a heavily publicized copyright infringement suit due to its alleged similarity to the Ronnie Mac song He's So Fine, a 1963 hit song from a group called the Chiffons. In 1976, Harrison was found to have subconsciously plagiarized the song, a verdict that had repercussions throughout the music industry. He said that he instead used "Oh Happy Day" by Edwin Hawkins as his inspiration for the melody, but he had to pay the fine, right? If you play "He's So Fine" and "My Sweet Lord," they are definitely similarities. Difference is Harrison is saying hallelujah instead of do lang, and he's playing an awesome guitar, but both were identical. I do feel that the intent of closeness and expression of his religious beliefs were there. And yes, this makes the song very beautiful. Bobby Whitlock was friends with George Harrison and Eric Clapton and played keyboards on this album. So during the sessions, Bobby Whitlock said the door would pop open and it would spring 3 or 4 or 5 Hare Krishnas in their white robes, shaved heads with a ponytail coming out of the top. And they were all painted up, throwing rose petals and distributing peanut butter cookies. Sounds like a hell of a party. So the guitar riff inspired the guitar opening riff to Sister Golden Hair, another great 70s song. George Harrison brings a powerful and passionate transcendental quality, and it takes on a whole other level of meaning now that he's gone. It's a prayer, it's a hope, it's a yearning. We got some featured Beatles songs from George. I think there were 22 songs where he was the lead. Of course, he was known for his incredible guitar playing, and a lot of people say he was the best musician of the band. But Here Comes the Sun, I Need You, Something, While My Guitar Gently Weeps. I mean, he had some incredible solo songs afterwards, and he had some great songs with the Beatles. So in all honesty, George Harrison was and will forever be tremendous. I mean, not my personal favorite Harrison song. I think What Is Life would be my pick, but All Things Must Pass, great album. He came right out of the gate and proved that the Beatles as solo acts were still going to be around for a long time. What do you think, Joseph?
I think this is a really, really great, beautiful, lovely song.
Thank you, Joseph.
I liked it. No, I like that you can.
Did you say how you can? Like in
No,
Street Fighter?
I like what Bob said about how the religious, I don't want to call them undertones, but they're there. They're front and center, even though it's a song written about the Hindu god Krishna, I believe. I like that although he wrote that in praise of his Hindu god, that's great. He wrote it though, and for his listeners to have a a desire or a direct relationship with whoever believers could affirm with religion. So it doesn't matter. It was personally written the way he wrote it, but he loved that it connected his listeners, his fans, with whoever they worship themselves. It was perfect for all of that. Before I delved into the lyrics and realized that it is, kind of this spiritual journey and experience, and this praise and this wanting to be, closer to that. I thought it was just a really great love song. You just the lyrics I really want to see. I thought that was him expressing beautiful sentiment to a lover or something like that, or a person that he desired. It wasn't, but it's still cool. It's still a really great song. It's still a really beautiful song. It's got a great melody, like Bob mentions. It's got that really not the. When was it released, Bob?
1970, November
70.
1970.
So a lot of and I don't remember when Randy's was released, but we'll get to that later. But in your selection and I think these songs were great. They were perfect for obviously the Beatles had no problem with transitioning to the new era of music, to continuing and going along as the time changed, as the music sound changed. They have no problem with that. This is saying on par kind of makes it sound less than what it is, but but I do think it was great. It wasn't, it was better than a lot of, I guess, what people would call on par at the time of the 70s, but really great selection. I can't disagree with, your both of your all's statements that, Harrison, very, very
Underrated.
And probably, in my opinion, had the second best solo career.
Ren, who'd you say that the song sounded virtually identical to a certain song, right?
The chiffons, he's so fine.
Yeah, I mean the Beatles are notorious for I don't want to say ripping off because they weren't ripping off. They were like in awe. Like "Come Together" it's a direct. The opening was Chuck Berry's, you know what I mean, one of his songs, like, which is really great, dude. They were infatuated and they loved a lot of R&B and classic, African American blues music back in the 50s and 60s. And I love the fact that they sampled a lot of it and they brought it into the homes of a lot of different people, a lot of different cultures, because somebody like Chuck Berry, dude, Chuck Berry was fucking amazing. And in the McCartney 3-2-1 that I watched on Hulu, him and Rick Rubin, I don't know if you've seen that, but that's another great documentary. Like, he talks about a lot of their influences. And I love the fact that they're influenced by these people and they create such great music, or they bring that music to the limelight that maybe certain households wouldn't have. So it's not uncommon for the Beatles, especially like McCartney or Lennon or George Harrison, to sample another person's music to like bring it to the limelight. Like My Sweet Lord, like they were definitely influenced by these individuals big time, and they wanted to play that style of music.
I honestly think it was unintentional. I'm not going to, chastise George Harrison for. I just brought it up as a point because
for sure.
If we don't talk about it, they're going to say, well, didn't they know that he was involved in a whole copyright thing with another songwriter? I will say this. I think it was unintentional. And I want to ask you guys this. This song has a lot of overlap about like death, sort of like, I want to see you, Lord. I want to, be with you. I'm thinking, do you think he wrote this song as a sort of eulogy that the Beatles were gone and now this is the rest of my life? So therefore I'm like eulogizing my former life and this is me now.
That's a great fucking point, dude. That it really could have been a big, huge metaphor, like My Sweet Lord. But he even says during the lyrics, like, he's like, I know now is not the time. I know it's going to be a while, but like, I really want to see you. I'm ready to see you. Like, I'm ready for the next chapter of my life. I could see that. It definitely could see that, man.
First number one hit for any Beatles after their breakup. So, I mean, George Harrison was impressive and we miss him. Joseph, what do you got for us?
I selected Band on the Run by Paul McCartney and Wings, the title track from their third studio album released in 1973. Like he has on other songs, both as a solo artist and with the Beatles in general, the song, McCartney wrote the song, it's composed of a 3-part melody, with the third and final melody being the most prominent and the bulk of the song, so to speak. I'm not really going to go into lyrics and song meaning for this one. I'm just going to, purely speak about the composition and how much, I really like it and enjoy it. Again, a 3-part melody. And honestly, as much as I like this song, I wish each part got their own song. In the opening, we get this really sweet, slow, moving ballad, kind of a love ballad, almost. Paul sings, very sweetly and harmonizing with his bandmates. It's really, really great. It reminded me, honestly, of Goodbye to Romance from Ozzy. It was just this really sweet,
good call.
Intro that I really liked, that could be a song on its own, but it wasn't. The second melody, probably my favorite, a nice little groovy, classic rock tone, very on par with what we love about rock music in the 70s. This was the shortest of those melodies. The first one was about a minute and 20 seconds, and this one was only just about 42 seconds. If you knew nothing about this song, you might think that each track was like their own in general, and that if you were just listening to it on an album or something, probably a vinyl album back in the days, that it went from one song to the next song to the next. And I think that was actually really cool. I think that adds, to the greatness of the song and particularly in McCartney's writing abilities. The third melody is most considered the actual song. And why wouldn't you? It's actually, where the lyrics of the story, come into play. The Band on the Run chorus. I hear a nice little blend of his Beatles roots, obviously, and what was currently of the time, that 70s rock sound. He delivered perfectly on all three levels. In particular, I did read an article. Obviously, I didn't know this back in the day because wasn't born, but in 73. But apparently, this came out at a time when people were doubting McCartney, and whether
Yes.
he could still hack it and bring the thunder, so to speak, the fire. That's for you, creative little pill.
Fine, yes.
and apparently he answered all of those questions with this one. Some people say that this is a song that I guess broke him free of that Beatles stigma, so to speak. Is he going to be anything more than the Fab Four? And some people point to this song as that. It's personally one of my favorite Paul songs. I like it more than a lot of Beatles songs, to be honest with you. And I think this is obviously one of his most signature songs of his entire music career in general, and that includes the Beatles. What do you guys think?
I think Paul McCartney he had the most pressure of all the Beatles to have a successful solo career. I think when you look at Paul McCartney, he wanted it the most. He wanted to be in a big band. He wanted to be a rock star. He wanted the fame. And I think that just intensified with the pressure of like, okay, now you have your own band. Let's see what you could do. And I know that there were a lot of critics on his first album or his first two albums. And so people were saying, well, maybe he can't be on his own like the other Beatles can, but he came out with fire on this song. And I like Band on the Run. A song has to hit me within the first 10 to 15 seconds. So I do like this song, but that first 2 minutes and 20 seconds, where are you taking me, Paul? That's half the song. You're not warmed up
cruise.
yet. Yes. You're not warmed up yet. By this time, John is on his second yoo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Get to the point. I love this song, but it takes a while to get warmed up. This was number 6 on the Rolling Stone list. Paul had some great solo hits. Obviously, he's been around longer, so he has the fortune of having the most robust catalog, being the talented singer-songwriter that he is. You had Maybe I'm Amazed sitting there. To me, that's the second best song by a former Beatle. I love Jet too, but I can't complain about
Nobody likes Jet.
I love Jet. It's a great song. This was a concept album. Jet is an incredible song. McCartney wrote this song in response to drug laws that criminalized him and his friends, including members of the Eagles and the Byrds. We're not criminals, he explained. We just would rather do this than hit the booze. He's talking about smoking weed and doing whatever they did, which was a traditional way to do it. We just felt this was a better move. Asked if this was a reference to Wings escaping from the Beatles, he replied, sort of. I think the bands on tour are always on the run. So I think this was a song, a concept album, really, where he's talking about his escape from being a Beatle and now into Paul McCartney and his new band. So this was sort of a diss track to the Beatles. This was like his No Vaseline, his Hit 'Em Up. That if we ever
no Vaseline, Jesus Christ.
That there's a line in there that says if we ever get out of here. That line, the guy singing that line sounds a hell of a lot like John Lennon. So I don't know if that was a diss or that was intentional, but Paul McCartney combined pieces of different songs to make this one. This was a common practice for the Beatles and explains why this song sounds so different in so many different parts. This was a common practice for them. There were articles that claimed that this was the first ever yacht rock song. So you won me over with that. I don't quite hear it, but I can see why. Still,
I don't hear that at all.
give me Michael McDonald and Seals and Crofts. John Lennon, who pompously liked to criticize his former Beatles bandmates, said that this was a great song from a great album. See, Jealous Guy was a song about how he wished he could have as much fun making music as Paul did. So the whole album is great, and Paul McCartney played bass, he played the drums, other percussion instruments, and most of the lead guitar parts on it. So what a talented guy. So many great instrumentals tucked away in this album, and he uses synth in 1973. Remember, synth wasn't really popular until the 80s, but Paul was already utilizing it in the early 70s. Paul's vocals and rhythm on this song were mesmerizing. Keith Moon praised the drum performance on this song, so that's high praise from an amazing drummer. Great song. I put this number 3 on the McCartney list, but it's still an amazing song. 3 top 10 singles on a 10-track album, which is incredible because Paul McCartney broke away. He knocked the doors down with this album. What do you think, Bob?
This has got to be It's a really great and memorable opening, dude. I agree with that, Joseph. This is one of my favorite Paul McCartney songs, Band on the Run. If it pops on my playlist, I'm listening to it beginning to end. I love the lyrics. Stuck inside these four walls, set inside forever. Like, really, really great shit, dude. I mean, I love all the transitions in the song, which is surprising to Joseph, because we did the worst Beatles song. You had a song, was it In My Life, where it transitions, it's half Lennon, half McCartney. You're like, I don't like this song, but this one definitely does this similar thing. It transitions. Yeah,
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Day in My Life,
Two completely different things.
Yeah, dude, the Day in the Life. Yeah, so I think this does it very similar. It's like
orchestra chaos versus a sweet, beautiful acoustic song, a nice groove rock song, and then I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
I'm gonna go even further. That saying this is 3 songs. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
The opening is one beautiful, amazing song. The middle, which Randy I think loves too, that transition. That's a different song in itself. And then Band on the Run, it's a completely different song. Paul McCartney fucked up. This could have been 3 hit singles. I'm sorry. If he had just expanded those beginnings, the middles, the ends, he could have had 3 potential hit singles on his hands. I don't know if they would have gotten number 1 like My Sweet Lord, but I definitely think they'd be in the top 10. They're great songs. Paul McCartney, I think he's the genius of the group. Lennon brought that somber tone and lyrics. George Harrison just wanted to be sweet and spiritual and play the guitar, and Ringo just wanted to have a good time. But Paul McCartney was the dude that called people up at 3 a.m. saying, hey, we got to go to the studio. I got an album. I got a song. We have to produce it like ASAP. Paul McCartney is a fucking genius. I love his music, both solo and with the Beatles. This song is amazing, Joseph. I don't have an argument for it or against it. I will say this, Rolling Stone got it right, because Maybe I'm Amazed is the best Paul McCartney song of all time. I really do love that song, and that has nothing to do with Band on the Run, because it's 3 different songs built into one, which is very creative and very Paul McCartney Beatles. But Maybe I'm Amazed, just it's the lyrically and musically, it's just with the piano, it's amazing. But it's a great pick, dude. I'm proud of you. That's a good one, buddy.
Maybe I'm Amazed is a little too soft for my taste. To add to kind of what both y'all said, I don't think there's anything wrong with this being okay. So Bob mentioned the Beatles song that I'm not a fan of. Songs, I guess a similar situation would be Layla. Derek and the Dominoes.
I love that song. How dare you?
That's like 2 great fucking songs in one. The first half of that song and the second half of that song, even though there's no lyrics anymore, in that second half, it's
just did Gangsters. Yeah,
just a great song. So there's nothing wrong with this one having the 3 melodies. Yes, they could each individually be 3 great songs on their own, but I think it's cool, man. I really dug it. I really love, now that when I first heard the song, I remember thinking that to myself, like, what the fuck, where are we going here with the song? Did the song change? What's going on? No, it was the one song. And now when I listen to it, I love each part. I love going from part to part, grooving along with the, whether I'm driving or whatnot.
In defense of Paul McCartney, I mean, Bobby, you mentioned it.
You can't defend that fucking mullet that he had. It was atrocious. Atrocious.
He had the Michael Jordan work ethic, right? The Kobe Bryant Mamba mentality.
Yeah.
He was the guy that wanted to keep the band together. He wanted to continue this thing going on. I don't want to say the other guys they had different priorities. Music was a priority, of course, but their stylings, their rituals, their expressions, and of course, the way their lives were taking shape were all, intertwining their focuses to something else. Paul always kept his eyes on the prize. It's like he had these blinders on, like, we have to be better. We have to be more successful. We have to be better than what we were the last album. And I think that drive was so intense that probably was a piece of why the band broke up, because people didn't want it as much as he did. And to be at that level, everybody's got to be all in, like they were those first 5-6 years. So, I mean, Paul was he was a workhorse, man, and you got to commend him for that.
Yeah, he was, dude. He was amazing. I think like you nailed it. That Mamba mentality, that I have an idea, we're going, and we're not leaving the fucking studio till we have it down. Like, we have it down. We have the idea. Like, he was definitely the guy that pushed everyone to that level. Like, we have to get in the studio. We have to make more music. We have to do this.
So we're going to go on and conclude with my selection. I selected Imagine by John Lennon. Imagine was number 9 on Sheffield's Rolling Stone article. The only Lennon song that topped it were Mind Games, which was an honorable mention, and God, which is repetitive. He just shouts out things he doesn't believe in, but good piano though. The idea came like a child's song, and I wanted to keep it the way so a child could understand it, is what John Lennon said. He said, I sort of think it was like Working Class Hero, only in child language. So many people have to thank John for this gem. Cover artists, hotel lounge piano players, figure skaters who overuse this song for their routines. A strong political message sugar-coated in a beautiful melody. How smart was John Lennon with this song? Let me sing about all the things that divide us, but I'll present it in such a soft and angelic way that people won't take umbrage with this message, but they will focus on the sweetness of the delivery. The Imagine concept came from Yoko Ono, according to John. Is it too late to change my pick? John was very much into open-mindedness and using your imagination. So in 1964, Yoko Ono published Grapefruit, a book of instructions and drawings that established the lyrical concept for this song. So kind of an eerie story. Lennon took the sole songwriter credit on this track, but later said that his wife, Yoko Ono, should have been credited as well. On December 6, 1980, 2 days before he was murdered, Lennon did a radio interview with Andy Peebles for the BBC where he explained that should be credited as a Lennon and Yoko Ono song because a lot of the lyrics and the concept came from Yoko. But those days, I was a bit more selfish, a bit more macho, and I sort of omitted to mention her contribution, but it was right out of Grapefruit, her book. On September 20th, 2001, Neil Young performed this on the benefit telethon for the victims of the terrorist attacks on America. Almost 60 million people watched that special in the U.S. I love Neil Young. I haven't seen his rendition of Imagine, but if it's anything like, old man, look at my life, I'm a lot like you, I would love to hear
that
it.
That was better than your Paul McCartney. I'll give you that. That was way better than that's saying much.
I just wanted to get it in there. Okay.
That's what I told her.
So Oasis used the piano intro on their 1996 song "Don't Look Back in Anger." It was used from Imagine.
Great song, by the way.
Great song. In 2002, this came in number 2 in a poll of Guinness World Records as Britain's favorite single of all time. It was edged out only by Bohemian Rhapsody. I'm going to skip over the fact that Gal Gadot was bored after 6 days of self-isolation during COVID and sang this song along with other celebrities showcasing their huge cozy mansions. Meanwhile, I had to supervise a kindergartner to stay put in front of a screen and sing along to Head, Shoulders, Knees, and Toes with his entire class. A lot of people misinterpret this song as anti-whatever pisses off whatever specific beliefs. I don't think that this was Lennon's intention, but of course, only in this world can a song about peace piss people off. The guy wants people to get along. Fuck him and his tiny circular sunglasses that sit obediently on the bridge of his nose. Nobody wanted to hear about peace. People will take a well-intended song and read far into it. All he was doing was inspiring peace, make the world as one. He was just wondering the same way we wonder about quitting our jobs daily to find inner peace, but we know it's not a possibility, just a fantasy. We mentioned on this podcast before that if you're using these artists as your moral compass for what you should believe in, check yourself on that notion. I don't think he's denying heaven. I think he's asking people to reflect on the things that separate us from believing what we have to do to be good people when the true motivation is being beyond good for an end paradise and being good to each other to create that serenity and peace here on earth. Now, was John always a good person? No, he wasn't. Ask his first wife, ask his son Julian, but the song is whatever you want it to mean. Make it yours, not his. Without ideals, we have nothing to shoot for. And this song is very idealistic. This song speaks to me more than what John Lennon ever did or what he had to atone for. I think this song will live on forever. When you hear those first piano notes, you know immediately what you're going to hear, and you're going to fall in love with the song over and over. So for all the discretions John, did in his life, he made a piece of music that will live on forever. What do you guys think?
This is obviously his signature song. It is a very beautiful song. It is a very, very well written song. It is the message in it is and it's a wonderful thing. And then I don't buy into the because you mentioned it, some people lost their mind, because of that one part in the beginning where imagine there's no heaven, no hell. Like it's one fucking line. Like
No religion too, Joseph.
but people lose their mind over some of the stupid shit. I don't.
Mhm.
The bulk of this song is about peace. It is a peaceful message, and that is a beautiful fucking thing. Like we really could use that fucking message today. That aside, because that's not what we talk about here. It's a very well written song. I love the melody. I really do. It's just me being nitpicking on the song. I think no drums were necessary. I think it was just a beautiful piano piece on its own. John Lennon is obviously one of the, I think Beatles, and there's two people that come to mind, right? John Lennon and Paul McCartney. And for some people, it's more John Lennon. And that's fine. We said what we said about Lennon and the whole Yoko thing.
Say. Is that what you're singing?
No. But, I don't, as much as this is a well-written, beautiful song with a great message, I don't think it's his best song. You mentioned some really, really great songs as honorable mentions. I personally... Happy Christmas.
Yeah.
War's over. Is, I think like it's specific for a time, right? It's specific for a time of year, but I think it's a really great song. I really do. I think it's better than this one. I know who wrote this song, and there's a cover of this song that I really, really love, and I can't have
Chris
that
Cornell?
Song. No, Perfect Circle.
Perfect Circle.
If I can't have that song, I can't have that cover to listen to if this one wasn't written.
If I can't have you, I don't want nobody, baby.
I know this. I know its place in history, its significance and its influence on musicians and whatnot. It's a wonderful song. It really is, with a great message that hey, he just really felt like what needed to be said at the time. It's particularly not the song that I think that he sounds the best in.
Look, like I love John Lennon in the Beatles. Like I think that as much as I say Paul McCartney is a musical genius, John Lennon might be more my cup of tea when it comes to the Beatles and his influence in the band and the songs that he helped create. I think that he's amazing. He's amazing. And I preface that by saying like his solo stuff, I wasn't a big fan of. I really wasn't. Now, I don't know how much of his solo career was, influenced by the drugs or by Yoko or by whatever the case is. But the fact that he didn't have his partner in Paul McCartney to help him fully create his piece of art, really does say a lot to me, at least to me. Like I said, the Get Back documentary, or the Paul McCartney's 3-2-1 with Rick Rubin, fucking amazing what Paul McCartney comes up with. And Paul would always say, like, man, you would hope for any little speck of like John Lennon telling you, hey, that's pretty good, because he'd never say that. But I think like John was definitely an introvert. Don definitely didn't give compliments often because he was very like insecure himself. And I think that he needed Paul as much as Paul thinks he needed John. I think it went both ways. And I think his music suffered solo career, not suffered because a lot of people love his music. I just could not get it. I just did not get it. I mean, the Working Class Hero song I talked about earlier, fucking amazing, dude. Folksy, dark guitar, and Imagine really did it for me for a while. It's a great song, Randall. I mean, Lennon's probably the song that Lennon will be always known for his solo career. The fact that it's done by Courtney fucking Love, Yoko Ono, most of it's written by her or influenced by her, and it's not Lennon, and it makes a lot of fucking sense, though. John Lennon has always been this darker figure. He always sees the negativity of life, not in a bad way. He's a realist. And this song is so like upbeat and the world can be one and imagine no possessions. And they're like, you're fucking rich, motherfucker. How you preaching to everyone? Imagine no possessions. Get the fuck out of here. But for it to be Yoko Ono's fake ass bringing up 75% of these lyrics, it makes a lot more sense because it doesn't have a John Lennon feel of like that darkness, that realist. Like he's a realist. I think that takes away from it a little bit. Not saying it's not a great song, but it makes sense that Yoko Ono would be a big part of the lyrics. So she wrote most of the lyrics. It makes sense to me now.
It's probably the most covered solo Beatles song. I think John was the guy who I don't want to say wanted to be different, but I think he had the most to sort of gain from being apart from the Beatles because his life had changed so dramatically. Now, whether it's relationships, drugs, I think everything played into it. His own neurosis, his own self-confidence. There's this book by an author called Jonathan Gould called Can't Buy Me Love. And on page 606, I won't read the whole quote, but he talks about how Paul McCartney wishes they could have done more together, him and John. Like, I wish we could have done this. I wish we could have done that. And Paul McCartney, being such a perfectionist and such an idealist, he doesn't take the time to think that everybody knows they did all that. They did all that together for years on end. And although they were separate for a decade, I think they reconciled towards the end. I don't remember, but I know that Paul had a lot of regrets about the connections that weren't made during that decade of the 70s when him and John could have gotten together and done something. And I think it was ego. I think it was pride. It was also just being young and confused on how to move forward on reconnecting with a friend, because we all go through that. And we're all not mega genius superstars. So Paul, I think his honesty and his regrets are a huge thing when it comes to the connection he had to John. I think these guys, all four of them, they loved each other, man. And they were such an amazing unit that apart they were good, but together it was just something special. And what other band can we do an episode like this on when we're talking about breakups? We're not going to do a Hall & Oates, retrospective,
Yeah. He had an incredible mustache, though. I'm sorry.
He did, yes. So, guys, final thoughts. Oh, go ahead, Joseph.
I don't want to take anything away from the guy who played drums on the track, Alan White, longtime drummer for Yes. I'm not taking anything away from people like talk about this song. One of the things I like to do when I'm listening to you all, when we do music episodes, is when you all are doing your, giving your 2 cents or whatever on the songs, I like to play them in my headphones and just kind of go along the journey that as you all explained. And a lot of the things that I read about this was like, it was it is a good song. It is a great song. The perfect drumming by Alan White. I'm not trying to take anything away from that. I don't want to piss anybody off. I know I said that I prefer it to be just a piano piece because I think it just sounds more beautiful that way. I'm acknowledging Alan White and not to take anything away from him. We are very respectful of the Beatles, even though Bob said it earlier. We like to make our jokes, but hey, we are very much fans of the Beatles. Yep. Interesting enough, just to add real quick to this song, I mentioned the Perfect Circle cover of Imagine. Probably one of the greatest cover. I should have probably picked this song as my best cover song episode. If we ever shoot back to that or maybe do a part 2 to that, this cover by A Perfect Circle, and I know I'm a fan of them, so I'm probably being one-sided here. It is a really great representation. Bob kind of mentioned how it was a little. I believe Bob said that with the tone of the lyrics and whatnot, and Lennon's version is very kind of upbeat and not necessarily upbeat, but a little happy,
positive. I think
positive. Yeah. Whereas A Perfect Circle's version, just switching the tone from a major key to a minor key, dropping everything down, and making it a little bit more gloomy. Randy, have you ever listened to the
I'm
cover?
not, but I'm going to listen to it immediately.
It's some people call it a weird like if the actual lyrics were taken into what they represent, like this war and like it's weird. Like it's just a simple change of tone brings it gives it a darkerness to it. And yeah, I am who I am, so I like it, and I'm a fan of the band.
It's like a dark Neil Diamond.
Yeah, it's a dark gothic Neil Diamond. So if for some reason you've never heard that song, that cover, please go check it out. And it's not to take away from anything, the original piece by John Lennon.
It's not like imagine all the people. No, it's not. Okay, all right.
Hey. That's what that sounded like.
It's Maynard, man. Maynard and his amazing voice. So anyway.
To conclude this episode, give us your final thoughts on Beatles as solo artists.
They're all amazing, man. And I give you that. They all have their own different personalities. They all could have made it on their own. They didn't need Beatles fame in order to make it on their own. Mm-hmm. I think that they're just, man, like I hear some of the amazing songs like that. Band on the Run. Imagine what they could have done if they were all still together. I'm a huge Paul McCartney fan. I'm a huge George Harrison fan. I think George Harrison is probably the most underrated dude from that band. He created some amazing music, amazing person. You know what I mean? His fucking best friend stole his wife, and he's like, God, hey, good for you, bro. I love you all. Peace be with you. Like, he's just such an amazing dude. Like, he's just like, that's the way it's supposed to be. And then he found the love of his life as well, and he's been through so much shit, and he's like, hey, he's just such a good dude. I think that it's amazing, man. They're They're amazing artists, and if you watch any of the documentaries, there's one coming out soon, right, Rand? Get Back.
Yeah,
it's coming out May 6th, I believe.
Yeah.
Let it be. We already saw.
Oh, get back.
Get Back is
Okay, we saw Get Back. It's gonna be Let It Be.
Let It Be.
Yeah,
Okay.
that comes out, and I'm just fucking amazed. Like, I can't fucking wait to see that, because you listen to the genius, man. It's just it's crazy. It's crazy. It really is. Joe?
Oh boy, Bob. I had the page up so that we can mention that to the listeners. Good job. About the upcoming re-release of that documentary. I know a lot of people say that obviously if they had never broken up, that would be just a great thing if they were together until they just never broke up, and unfortunately if members pass away, then they pass away, but just never breaking up. But I like the fact that I feel each member got to get some stuff out. Some stuff that they really wanted to say.
I agree.
As far as their music or their own message, songs that they wrote that I'm sure they were very, very passionate about, that meant a lot to them. Specifically, Bob's selection. That song really fucking meant a lot to George Harrison, and it's great that he got to do that. It's great that he got to release that, because who knows whether or not he would have been able to do that with the Beatles, or if it was something that he did get to do with the Beatles, was it his version, or was it his vision that was tweaked a little bit by John and Paul? So, or and Ringo themselves, everybody respectively. In a perfect world, had the Beatles remained together, sure, but I do think we got some really great music out of their solo careers. That's a good thing, right?
I think with the Beatles going solo, it was all about artistic liberation. They had to free themselves from each other. They hit the ceiling, like right when they stepped on stage together. Like their apex was right when they first met each other till the end on top of that roof. I mean, they were incredibly gifted to have stepped on and created such artistry and magic from the get-go. And of course they paid their dues. They played nightclubs for many years and in small bars, but when they made it big, I mean, they never looked back. And during their solo careers, they grew. They gave us great music separately. I love the creative competition and the legacy that it gave them. I wish things were different. I wish they could have reunited at some point. I think they would have, maybe in the 90s. And I mean, you think about it, Ringo Starr turns 84 and Paul McCartney turns 82. I think they're both summer babies. They might not be around I shouldn't say might, they won't be around for very long. And once they're gone, I mean, that puts
Don't say that. I'm going to go see him in concert in July. Randall, what the fuck?
No, but I'm hoping years and decades from now or whatever time they have left, because they seem like they're still very full of life and healthy, thank goodness. But when they're gone, the legacy of the Beatles is going to grow even more. They will never go away. Our grandkids are going to know who the Beatles are. And they're always going to forever be the number one band, the best band in the world, whether you hate them or not, whether some people are snarky and say, well, they're overrated. I don't care.
Fuck them.
They influence so many bands. Your father's favorite band, your son's favorite band, they were all influenced by the Beatles. So, I mean, there you have it. But great episode, guys. I mean, just talking about this band always brings us together in good conversation. I really appreciated it. I think you guys did great. That's our show, everyone. Listeners, we'd love to hear from you. Hit us up and let us know what you think the best Beatles solo song is. Most importantly, let us know what you think about the show. You may reach us at formidableopponents@gmail.com and follow us on all forms of social media by searching for Formidable Opponents. We want to thank Creative Little Pill for her great artwork. Please follow her on Instagram at Creative Little Pill. Please subscribe, rate, and review us on any podcast platform you're listening to us on. Join us next episode. We'll be back with Best Character from The Office.
Oh.
So for Bob and Joseph, this is Randall. We'll see y'all next week.
Randall,
imagine there's no episode next week. Imagine we can sleep early.
We're going to take your notes, Randall, and put them on the fridge so we can look at them whenever we want.
Bye, everybody.